Scal, how we doing this week?
Doing well. You guys?
We're doing well. We're getting ready for this game here tonight against the Cleveland Cavaliers. What has the Celtics' issue been with Cleveland so far this year? They're 0-2 against them, couple of overtime losses. What sort of issues and matchup problems maybe even does Cleveland present?
Yeah, I think in general, and this is not just the Cavs. You probably saw it in the Knicks game. You've seen it against the Miami Heat with Bam Adebayo, and Knicks game with Mitchell Robinson. They have Mobley, they have Allen, guys that can defend that restricted area. So I think in general we seem to struggle with that. Now, that was early on, no Rob Williams, but some of the ways you can combat that is by driving and throwing, those alley-oops to Rob. They call that vertical spacing in the NBA. So but I do think that's been an offensive problem for us. We still get a lot of open shots like we did in the Knicks game. I didn't think we played awful, just missed a lot of open shots. But I do think if I had to say one thing that the Celtics sort of struggle with is shot blocking bigs with physical defenders.
Scal, seeing Jayson Tatum's first career ejection in an actual season game, I know he had one in preseason. What did you think of that situation? Do you think that there was a better way he could have handled himself, or was it kind of a victim of circumstance with how you interpreted the officiating in that game?
Well, I mean, he got he got that dunk, and then he said the guy pushed me in the back. That was a tech. And I don't know what he said to the refs because he was being kind of facetious afterwards, saying, I thought this is the greatest officiated game I've ever seen.
Was there
and they kicked him out.
Naughty word in there, maybe?
I mean, there might have been, but it wasn't listen, the Celtics didn't play well, right? And you rarely see a team get teased and have problems with the officials when they're shooting it well or really flowing. But sometimes there's compounding issues with that. You're not getting the stops you need. You can't cut this lead down, and we're getting open shots, and you're not knocking them down. So then frustrations kind of come to a head there. I didn't feel like he did enough to get ejected, but it was it felt like a very frustrated game for the Celtics. And Tatum, who's come back from All-Star break, and he hasn't had one of those like quintessential Jayson Tatum performances where he's basically doing what he wants when he wants. 3 games in a row where it's been a little bit tough for him to get going. So maybe just frustration. And listen, 82 games, I get it. Like, we all get frustrated at times, and it seemed like that was like the after a long road trip, I don't know what he did after Salt Lake, probably hasn't been home in whatever amount of time. Sometimes frustrations come to a head.
Aside from missing his bed, do you see any common thread between those 3 games that you cited having a little bit of a slide since the All-Star game?
The only thing I would say is, I think teams are gearing up to stop him with that. And remember, that was Miles Turner, who's a good shot blocker, Joel Embiid, and Mitchell Robinson. So that's 3 games in a row with physical guys meeting Tatum at the rim. And bigs aren't stepping up early. They're basically saying, we're going to give you this mid-range shot, and you're going to have to come and finish over us. And so that's just a common thread. And I'm not saying, and like I've said, I've seen it in the past, but it doesn't mean he can't combat that. I do believe that if the Celtics would have made shots, it would have opened up the floor. I thought Joe Mazzulla pushed the right buttons by putting in a Mike Muscala to open up the floor. But even if you put in all your shooters and you had that play where Sam Hauser was wide open, if you don't make shots, it doesn't do anything for you.
Scal, Arcand here. Do you believe in the Milwaukee Bucks and what they're doing? Obviously, they're very, very hot right now. They've passed the Celtics. Do you believe they can sustain this, and do you think the Celtics will be looking up at them for the rest of the season?
I don't know about looking up. The Bucks have had their moments where they'll be 5-5 over their last 10. So I do think, and I don't know how many times you've asked me this question, but I talk about this on the broadcast or whatever. I'm a big believer in the Bucks. I'm a big believer from day one. I didn't care when they lost all those games. I think they're big, they're strong, they're physical, they're competitive. I don't think people understand what it's like when your smallest guy on the floor is Drew Holiday, and he is like a linebacker out there. So, and I look at the Celtics and I say, there's only, in my mind, there's only one way to beat them, and you got to be more physical than them. So the Bucks are a team, to me, that have the capabilities of doing that. And I believe in Giannis as a player. I don't know if they'll beat. I don't know if the Celtics will beat the Bucks or what, but I do know that home court advantage, I think, will dictate that series. If the Game 7's in Milwaukee, it's going to be tough if they're healthy. If the Game 7's in Boston, it will be tough for Milwaukee to beat the Celtics if healthy. So I think you have to win these regular season games. I think you have to figure out a way to have home court advantage.
Well, maybe the Celtics should have played their guys in Milwaukee before the All-Star break. That would be a good way to get Game 7 at home. I'm curious how many teams fit into that group, Scal. You just mentioned Milwaukee's one of those teams. Is Cleveland one? Who else are the teams that you look at and say, it could come down to home court advantage. If the Celtics don't have it, I don't know how it's going to go. How many teams realistically are in that group with the Celtics? Milwaukee and who else?
Yeah, nobody else. Just
That's
Milwaukee.
It? That's the whole That's the whole league? That's it?
Well, you're saying like that. I think the Celtics will lose the series if they don't have home court advantage. Yeah, and that list is one. That's the Bucks. There's nobody else. Nobody.
Not Golden State. Not Golden State if they got Golden State.
I mean, that's like a stretch, right? If they were to somehow figure it out, I do think so. Draymond Green is that guy, by the way. Like he plays that cat and mouse game with Tatum. Like he thinks he's up to floor, but he's backing up, meeting you at the rim. So he's one of those guys. But there's not many guys or not many teams that have like the physicality across the board. Remember, the Celtics are big.
Yeah.
They lead the league in defensive rebound percentage. They're big across. They rebound at a high clip. The Bucks are too. No one else matches up with them. That's why, I know we had that argument real quick about Brooklyn. I don't believe in teams that are small beating the Celtics or the Bucks. It's just not going to happen. Philly might be, but man, I don't know. They just don't seem to have enough talent.
Yeah, I wouldn't go with Philly either. What about Phoenix? What about does Phoenix fit in their too small category for you?
No, I mean we'll see tonight. Like anytime you have a guy like Kevin Durant, but I think the biggest issue with them is will all those guys stay healthy? Listen, I'm as big of a believer in Kevin Durant as anybody out there, and I think Chris Paul as a third guy is going to be amazing. Same thing, Devin Booker as a number 2 is going to be amazing. So I think they're good, but to me it's just the Bucks. I watch NBA, whatever, watch around. I just see them as a threat and the only threat. Now listen, I could be wrong. Cleveland could have an amazing season. Donovan Mitchell can go for 40 a game, maybe Darius Garland, but I look at the Bucks top to bottom. Just start naming guys on their roster, and you're like, man, everyone's big. Everyone's big and strong and physical and tough.
So, Scal, we had this conversation, I don't know if it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago. Jones had asked you about Derrick White possibly replacing Marcus Smart in the lineup, in the starting lineup. Just given the way that Smart, aside from the Knicks game, has kind of struggled a little bit in a small sample size coming out of his injury, and Derrick White has been really a force for himself through the last several weeks. Do you think there needs to be any reevaluation in terms of Derrick White, not necessarily replacing Smart, but even just being in the final lineup on the floor in crunch time? It was something that even Tim Bontemps, I saw, wrote about a couple days ago.
So when you guys asked me that question, do you know how many minutes that group that went to the NBA Finals that lapped the league last year played together during that time when you asked me that question?
Yeah, it was something like 50 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, it was 29.
Sorry. Maybe now it's up to more. They've played like 3 straight games together since the All-Star break. Or I'm sorry, the first 2 out of the All-Star break, and they haven't looked so hot.
Okay, but they won both those games, didn't they?
Yeah, they didn't look great as a unit, and I think especially the Philly game, that would have been one where I would have stuck with Derrick White longer. Like to Mego's point, part of a closing lineup, I would have liked to have seen Derrick White as part of the closing lineup in that specific game for sure.
And I'm not saying that
so
I feel that way. I'm just wondering. Yeah,
I know, but but you guys, when you, I can tell you the reason why they didn't go that direction because, and you guys can have your own opinions on what you think, but I'll tell you what the coach of the Celtics, he didn't when he switched. When you're going to switch pick and rolls with Joel Embiid, you want Marcus Smart out there. So you don't understand how Derrick White could be a problem guarding Joel Embiid in a one-on-one situation, and how valuable Marcus Smart is in those situations. So
in theory, yes, but in that night, no. I think he was like a minus 22 in that game, and Derrick White, they were pulling away from Philly when he was on the floor.
And how good was Marcus Smart? In the what game in the overtime game was it? The Indiana game?
Yep.
Yeah, so you factor that in or
no,
not?
Smart had a good overtime against the Pacers, yeah.
Small sample size, a big sample size. Do you take into consideration last year at all? When you asked me that question, you gave them 29 minutes and you thought they should have went a different direction. and which is fine. Everyone has right to their own opinion. That's fine. Like Derrick White has been, he's been average since Marcus Smart has come back. But I just want to know what you're basing that off of. Like me, I'm rolling the dice with the team that got me to the NBA Finals last year. If I have to make different decisions as I go forward, I think I can adjust to that. But I want to see what this group looks like. I want to see this group through. I think they've earned that right. You're like after 29 minutes, you're ready to make
well,
a
no,
change.
it's not about the 29 minutes. It's about the whole year Derrick White is at. Like Derrick White has had a very good year, so it's really more about that, which is a big sample size.
But you're bail on the lineup that only had 29 minutes together.
I've seen enough out of Derrick White.
Yes or no?
Yeah,
yes or no? You would have bailed.
Yeah, I've seen enough out of Derrick White where I would have. Yeah.
You would have just said, "Oh, let me get this straight." A team goes to the finals last year. They lapped the NBA in the second half since they were 18
they
and
lost
21.
They lost in the finals, by the way, but yes.
Gotcha. All right. So, if you're results based like that, then that's fine. Then it's just a difference of opinion. I really wish you can coach in the NBA. It would be great to watch.
I wish I could.
I
tell people this all the time.
I would really love you. They really would.
I would love to, Scal. Can you
would.
Can you put in a good word for me?
I know you think you would love it. It would be great to see.
Arcand, anything else before we go?
Yeah, Scal, I know you're not the Memphis radio host here, but what's up with Ja Morant? Is he completely off the rails here? Or what? I've had a superstar like this. I'm struggling to think of a guy who's veering towards what he's in the mix with right now.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. You guys heard that incident with the Indiana Pacers, and they talked about lasers being pointed. Now I don't know, man. It's like there's a difference between being authentic to who you are and getting the face right now. You're the future face of Nike, which is a lot of money at stake, right? And then you're also the future face of the NBA and your organization. So I'm sure the NBA is having conversations with him, but it's weird how the last 3 months, this guy's everyone's adored Ja Morant for being authentic. He has that Iverson vibe to him, right? People loved Iverson for being who he is. Well, I think there's a line to that, and it does seem like he's crossing that. So my guess is Adam Silver. This is way beyond the Memphis Grizzlies. Adam Silver would probably have a nice conversation with Ja Morant and be like, "Listen, you have a lot on the line here, and we are marketing the NBA around you. And if you keep saying stuff like the league wants us to fail, they don't love us, and all these things, which is not true." But you think that, and that's you're going down this road that the NBA is not going to like. So I guess it's his choice for quote unquote being authentic to who you are. But I do think there's a line to that.
All right. He's Brian Scalabrine. You can check him out on NBC Sports Boston and check him out here on WEEI on Thursdays at 4:30. Scal, thanks so much. We appreciate the time.